Right now, at this very moment, someone is looking at your life and wishing they had what you have: your health, your family, your opportunities, and at the same time, you are looking at someone else's life, wishing you had theirs. This is the strange game we all play, a game with no winners, a game called comparison. And today, I am going to tell you a story that will change how you see yourself forever. But first, tell me something honest. Have you ever felt behind in life, like everyone else is running faster, achieving more, living better? If yes, write the word "behind" in the comments. You are not alone, and this story is for you. Now, subscribe if you haven't, because stories like this one might just save your future self. In a quiet village surrounded by green hills, there lived a gardener named Elias. He was 40 years old, and he owned a small piece of land behind his modest house. For years, Elias loved his garden more than anything in the world. Every morning, he woke before sunrise to water his tomatoes. He sang to his apple trees. He knew every flower by name, every stone in the soil. His hands were rough, his back was tired, but his heart was full. His garden was not the biggest in the village. It was not the richest, but it was his, and he was proud of it. Then, one spring, everything changed. A new family moved into the large house next door. Their name was the Brandt family, and they brought with them a gardener from the city, a professional with silver tools and leather gloves. Within weeks, the neighbor's garden transformed. Perfect roses in perfect rows, a fountain made of white stone, trees that bore fruit twice the size of anything Elias had ever grown. And every morning, when Elias stepped outside with his watering can, his eyes did not look at his own tomatoes anymore. They looked over the fence. At first, it was just curiosity. Then it became something darker. "Look at their roses," he whispered to himself. "Mine look like weeds beside theirs." He stopped singing to his apple trees. What was the point? His apples were small. His fountain was just an old bucket with a crack in it. His flowers were simple, wild, ordinary. The strange thing was, his garden had not changed. The tomatoes were the same tomatoes he had loved for years. The apple trees were the same trees that had fed his family every autumn. But now, standing in the middle of his own paradise, all Elias could see was failure, because he was looking at theirs. Days turned into weeks, and the feeling only grew. Elias no longer enjoyed working in his garden. Watering the tomatoes felt like pouring hope into empty soil. He became jealous, frustrated, even angry at the Brandt family, people he had barely spoken to. At night, he lay awake thinking, "Why can't I have what they have? Why is life so unfair?" He dreamed of buying fancy tools, planting new flowers, tearing down his old fence. Even his once favorite apple pie tasted bitter, as if comparison had found its way into every bite of his life. One morning, after a night of little sleep, Elias heard a gentle knock on the gate. To his surprise, it was Mrs. Brandt herself, holding a basket overflowing with fresh fruit. She smiled warmly. "We have so much this season, and I've admired your apple trees from the window. Would you like to trade some apples for our pears?" Elias hesitated. He wanted to say no. He wanted to hide his small apples behind his back, embarrassed by their size. Still, he nodded and filled his basket with the best apples he could find. As they walked together through both gardens, Mrs. Brandt pointed to Elias's tomatoes. "Yours are redder than ours. They remind me of the ones I tasted during my childhood." She picked a small tomato, bit into it, and smiled with genuine delight. Elias looked at the tomato for the first time in weeks, not as a disappointment, but as a gift worth sharing. In that moment, something shifted. They sat on an old bench between their gardens, baskets between them. Mrs. Brandt told Elias that when she arrived in the village, she was amazed by his simple, wild flowers, how they bloomed freely, not trapped in perfect rows. She had even told her husband that she hoped their garden would feel as alive as his one day. Elias was stunned. The thing he'd been embarrassed of, the very things that made his garden unique, were exactly what someone else admired most. It was then Elias realized the deep truth. While he had been busy wishing for another man's garden, someone else was quietly wishing for his. That night, for the first time in a long time, Elias walked his own garden under the silver moonlight. He saw his world not through the fence, but through his own eyes. He touched the rough bark of his apple trees, felt the earth cooling beneath his feet, and whispered, "Thank you." The garden was never the problem. The way Elias looked at it was, when you compare yourself to others, you blind yourself to your own unique strengths and blessings. True happiness comes not from chasing someone else's life, but from appreciating and nurturing the gifts you already have. Remember, someone is quietly wishing for what you take for granted, so value your own journey, and growth will follow.